As a therapist, I've worked with hundreds of anxious people, and I've noticed something surprising. The people who recover aren't the ones who learn how to stop feeling anxious, they're the ones who learn this very important thing instead. So, my name's Rick Cardwell, I'm a psychodynamic counsellor and a therapist, and this is a short video about if you're suffering from anxiety, something that you really need to hear. If you struggle with anxiety, there's something that I want you to really get to grips with. Not because it's comforting, not because it's motivational, but because it's true. Anxiety is one of the most misunderstood experiences in mental health. Many anxious people spend years trying to stop feeling anxious. They try to think differently, distract themselves, and avoid situations. They prepare for every possible outcome, and yet the anxiety keeps showing up. So if anxiety has been running your life lately, this message is for you. Because what every anxious person needs to hear is this: your anxiety is not the problem. Your relationship with anxiety is. And once you understand that, everything begins to change. One of the biggest misconceptions about anxiety is that it means something is wrong. Clients often tell me, I shouldn't feel this way. Other people seem fine. Why can't I just relax? But anxiety itself is not evidence that you're broken. Anxiety is actually a normal human survival response. Your brain's job is not to make you happy, your brain's job is to keep you alive. And it does that by constantly scanning for danger. The problem is that modern anxiety often isn't responding to actual threats. It's responding to possibilities. What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I make a mistake? What if something bad happens? Notice that anxiety lives in the future. It constantly asks, what if? And because the future is uncertain, anxiety always has more questions. Imagine trying to satisfy someone who never stops asking questions. That's what many people do with anxiety. They answer one fear and anxiety immediately creates another. You reassure yourself, then you need more reassurance. You check once, then you check again, you prepare more, then you prepare even more. The anxiety isn't satisfied because certainty is impossible. And anxiety is always demanding certainty. What anxiety is really trying to do is this. So here's something that many people find surprising. Anxiety is actually trying to help you. It's just using outdated methods. Think of anxiety like an overprotective smoke alarm, a smoke alarm that has one job: to detect danger. The problem is that some smoke alarms become so sensitive that they go off when someone makes toast. The alarm isn't evil, it isn't malfunctioning completely, it's just overestimating the threat. And that's exactly what happens with anxiety. A presentation becomes a disaster waiting to happen, a text message becomes evidence someone is upset with you. A small health symptom becomes a serious illness, a mistake becomes proof that you're failing. The anxious brain isn't intentionally lying, it's overprotecting. And understanding this changes how we respond, because if anxiety is trying to protect you, fighting it often makes it stronger. Here's the message I hope and wish every anxious person truly understood. You do not need to feel safe to do brave things. I want you to hear that again. You do not need to feel safe to do brave things. When people believe confidence comes first, then action, but in reality, action often comes first, then confidence follows. I've worked with clients who were terrified of public speaking, terrified of dating, terrified of driving, terrified of making phone calls, answering phone calls, and none of them waited until the fear disappeared. Because if they had waited, they might still be waiting now. Instead, they learned something powerful. They learned they could carry anxiety and still move forward. Anxiety says, don't do it until you feel ready. Growth says, do it and discover you're more capable than you think. The goal isn't becoming fearless, the goal is becoming willing. Willing to feel discomfort, willing to feel uncertainty, willing to feel anxious and still live your life. There's another thing that every anxious person needs to hear. Avoidance works, at least temporarily. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Imagine you're anxious. Imagine you're anxious about social situations. You cancel plans. Immediately you feel relief. Your brain learns, great, avoidance works. The next time anxiety appears, your brain suggests avoidance again. Every time your world becomes smaller. Now you're becoming, not because you're incapable, but you're becoming familiar with avoidance. Every anxiety has become the decision maker. The irony is that avoidance teaches the brain that the situation was dangerous. Facing the situation teaches the brain that you can handle it. It's really not that scary. Those are very different lessons. Every time you avoid, anxiety gets stronger. Every time you face something difficult, even imperfectly, you send a different message. You tell your brain, I can survive this. And that lesson is transformative. A story I see again and again. I've seen countless versions of this story throughout my career. Someone that comes to therapy and they are exhausted. They're overthinking everything, constantly worrying, seeking reassurance, avoiding situations, trying desperately to eliminate anxiety. Then gradually they stop fighting anxiety. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? They start asking, how do I live my life even when that feeling is here? And that's where the real change begins. Their anxiety doesn't disappear overnight, but something more important happens. Their life expands. They reconnect with friends, pursue opportunities, take risks, speak up, travel, date, apply for jobs, set boundaries, not because anxiety has vanished, but because anxiety stopped being in charge. So, if you're struggling with anxiety today, this is what I want you to remember. You are stronger than your anxious thoughts suggest. You do not need perfect certainty. You do not need complete confidence. You do need anxiety to disappear. You do not need anxiety to disappear before you start living. You only need a willingness to take the next step. Anxiety will always tell you to wait. Wait until you're ready. Wait until you're sure. Wait until you're confident. But life happens now. Not after anxiety gives permission. And if there's one thing every anxious person needs to hear, it's this. The goal isn't to eliminate anxiety. The goal is to build a life that's bigger than anxiety. So if this message has resonated with you, then please follow, share, subscribe. Please pass this on to anybody that may need to hear it. And remember, You don't have to believe every thought your anxious mind tells you. You only have to decide which one deserves your attention. So thank you for watching, and if anxiety is something that you struggle with and you'd like to talk to me about that, just send me a message. We can have a free confidential chat, give some advice and guidance. And if you want to go on to professional help, that's absolutely fine. But just send that message, and don't struggle, don't suffer in silence, because these things are really fixable. You can get them under control, and you don't have to live a life of suffering. You can have a much better future. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video soon.